Okay, here we go. Welcome everyone. Welcome to session number 264 of Kevin Reed's A Course in Miracles. Today we are in the Manual for Teachers, and we will focus on question number 15. Is each one to be judged in the end? Okay. The writing in this section is just exquisite. Very, the poetry, the metaphors, wonderful. So, is each one to be judged in the end? Indeed, yes. No one can escape God's final judgment. Who could flee forever from the truth? But the final judgment will not come until it is no longer associated with fear. One day, each one will welcome it, and on that very day, it will be given him. He will hear his sinlessness proclaimed around and around the world, setting it free as God's final judgment on him is received. This is the judgment in which salvation lies. This is the judgment that will set him free. This is the judgment in which all things are freed with him. Time pauses as eternity comes near, and silence lies across the world, that everyone may hear this judgment of the Son of God. Holy are you, eternal, free and whole, at peace forever in the heart of God. Where is the world, and where is sorrow now? All right. That's the judgment. Holy are you, eternal, free and whole, at peace forever in the heart of God. That's the judgment. That's your true state of existence. Okay. So is each one to be judged in the end? Yeah, indeed. He says no one can escape it. Right? Because these fragments of the mind that we think we broke up into, it's all part of the one mind, and that one sun, that one emanation of the original being, that one emanation is resting in the heart of God. As they say in the text, you are at home in God, dreaming of exile. Actually, you're already there. No one can escape God's final judgment. Who could flee forever from the truth? That's who you are. You can't run away from it forever. Right? But he says, but look, the final judgment will not come until it's no longer associated with fear. Ever since the belief that I separated from the oneness, I have concocted an incredible story. I projected the guilt that I automatically felt, right? And the anger that led to that guilt, the anger out of not being allowed to be an individual. Right? I projected that onto the one God. Right? Now he's the angry person. And believe me, I know I'm using all the male pronouns and all that. There is no he, there is no masculine God, there is no God in humanoid form. It's just that our brain does that to us. We really have been programmed to think that way. All right? And so this is an undoing of that, hopefully. But we need to use words to describe the indescribable. But nonetheless, when I believed I separated, I automatically felt guilt. So I started, and that thought system that arises with the guilt now advises me, project it, you'll feel better. Just project it out there and you'll feel better. So the first thing I do is I project it onto God. Like now God is the destroyer and he's going to destroy me. Right? So I better get out of the mind. And so I'm counseled by the ego. Come on, I got a plan. And I project, and here's the universe. And the one Son of God shatters into billions of pieces. I always like the image of a big mirror shattering and winding up all over the place. Each piece has the qualities of a mirror. So each piece has the qualities of the Son of God. But we cut ourselves off from that. Right? We split off from that idea, right? And make up this whole chaotic, nonsensical, frightening, and sometimes disgusting universe, right? In which we think we exist. Right? And each part of that universe tries to prove to us that we separated and that we're guilty. It reinforces the whole system. Right? And what we're doing here in the Course in Miracles with Jesus' help is we're undoing that. Right? We're undoing it piece by piece. Everything that I become aware of, everything you become aware of, that is not a thought of love and peace, come back to your mind. Bring it to that presence in your mind that remembers who you are. And ask for a retranslation. Help me to see this correctly. I'm willing to see the innocence. I'm willing to have the truth arise in my awareness. Right? That's when the final judgment will come nearer and nearer. When it is no longer associated with fear. There is no angry God out there looking to get me, which is what the ego counsels me. Don't look, don't go there. God is looking to get you. Right? And so we become afraid of God, and if we're not aware of that, we become afraid of everything else. Right? We become afraid of our neighbors, afraid of other countries, afraid of diseases, afraid to lose this individuality, right? which would dissolve in the presence of who we really are. Right? And so as we get closer to it, we get a little shaky. And that's putting it mildly. And that's the fear of God. That's the fear of love. Right? But the final judgment will not come, so you will not realize your innocence until it's no longer associated with fear. Right? There's no punishment involved. There's no retribution, right? There's no sacrifice. There's no sacrifice as atonement. There's only the atonement, the idea that you never separated, right? So there's no God coming to punish me for those meatball sandwiches I stole in high school in a cafeteria. On several occasions. They were good. I think I always had issues with food, but there it is. All right. So I'm not getting punished for anything that I did. All right. Living here on this earth, we punish ourselves. We take, we assign that to God. God's going to punish us. But then we say, don't worry about it. I got this. I'll punish myself. He mentions that, and I think in the next paragraph. So the final judgment will not come until it's no longer associated with fear. And one day, everyone will welcome the final judgment. Everyone will welcome it. And on that very day it will be given him. He will hear his sinlessness proclaimed around and around the world. Right? And so it's not Jesus telling us that there really is a world. It's a metaphor. It's poetic. Your innocence will be proclaimed throughout eternity, throughout timelessness, throughout the mind, the timeless mind, the eternal mind, the boundless mind. Right. It will be proclaimed, setting it free as God's final judgment on him is received. Right. You'll hear your sinlessness and you'll be set free. This is the judgment in which salvation lies. Right? This is the judgment. You are innocent. It sets you free from this whole ego thought system of guilt. The ego thought system, the whole world is based, the foundation is guilt, which needs to be projected in a very Freudian way. So we need others around us to project it on. It wasn't me. It was my brother. I remember one time this woman walked up to me and slapped me in the face. I've never seen this woman before in my life. And she started telling me, I said, what are you doing? She started telling me why. And then I said, oh, that's my brother. And I could see why she slapped me in the face. My brother was very lovable, but he was a bit of a scoundrel. Very, very lovable person. I could see his innocence always. All right. So this is the judgment in which all things are freed with you. Time pauses as eternity comes near. So time, which is an illusion, it's kind of like stunned as the awareness of eternity rises up. And silence lies across the world that everyone may hear the judgment of God's Son. Then all of a sudden, this is so poetic a metaphor. There'll be silence throughout the universes as it is proclaimed, how holy are you, eternal, free, and whole, at peace forever in the heart of God. Where is the world, and where is sorrow now? All right. When you are resting in the heart of God, resting in peace in the heart of God, where is sorrow? Where's the world? And that's what will be proclaimed. Right? That will be your awareness. Right? Paragraph 2, but at this point, is this your judgment on yourself, teacher of God? Do you believe that this is wholly true? No, not yet. Not yet. But this is still your goal. Why you are here. It is your function to prepare yourself to hear this judgment and to recognize that it is true. One instant of complete belief in this, and you will go beyond belief to certainty. One instant out of time can bring time's end. Judge not, for you but judge yourself, and thus delay this final judgment. What is your judgment of the world, teacher of God? Have you yet learned to stand aside and hear the voice of judgment in yourself? Or do you still attempt to take his role from him? Learn to be quiet, for his voice is heard in stillness. And his judgment comes to all who stand aside in quiet listening and wait for him. All right. Another place in the text, there's a very beautiful sentence that says, love waits on welcome, not on time. All right. So he says, is this the way you think of yourself? As holy and eternal and free and resting in peace in God? He says, do you believe this? He goes, no, not yet. Not yet. He says, but you will. Because you're on the path. Once the journey has begun, the end is certain. Right? It's a guarantee. Right? But this is your goal. This is your goal, to realize your own innocence. That's why you're here. And we realize our own innocence by being willing to see it all around us. In every instant, every episode, every encounter. Right? If we can get past the anger and resentment, the fear and the hatred, and come inside and ask, help me to see this. I'm willing to see it correctly. He says, it's your function to prepare yourself to hear this judgment and to recognize it as true. And that's how we prepare to hear that final judgment, by bringing all these scraps of fear and guilt into the mind, into the light, to be retranslated, to be willing to have it retranslated. I'm willing to see the world differently instead of projecting guilt onto it. And we don't know what that world looks like, and we don't have to figure it out. We just have to be willing to see it correctly. Be willing to have the truth rise up in your awareness. And you know, every day, every moment of every day, there's an opportunity. As Jerry Garcia and Robert Hunter wrote one time, once in a while we get shown the light, and the strange is the prices if you look at it right. All right. Sugar magnolia. But it's a day-to-day, moment-to-moment willingness to see correctly. And the more you do it, the more you want to do it. And the closer and closer the realization of peace comes to you. And as Dr. Wapnick would say, quoting Jesus, you smile more frequently. Your brow is less furrowed. Okay? That's part of the process. That's what he means by not yet, but it's on its way. So he says, judge not for you, but judge yourself. It's always just a projection. There's no one out there. It's just a projection of your own guilt. Right? And first we have to admit, oh yeah, I'm projecting my guilt. I'm afraid of love. I think I'm separated. All those things. Doesn't make you bad, just makes you mistaken and existing in the chaos. Uncertain, lonely, and in constant fear, as they say. So judge not for you, but judge yourself. And thus you delay the final judgment. You just delay the awareness of your own beauty and innocence. All right. What is your judgment on the world, teacher of God? That's sentence 9. Have you yet learned to stand aside and hear the voice of judgment in yourself? All right, now the voice of judgment is capitalized. So he's talking about the Holy Spirit, the memory of who you are. Jesus. All right. The atonement principle, the voice for God, your innocence. Just stand aside and let it rise up. All right. Or do you still attempt to take his role from him? That's what I was talking about before. He says, can you just stand aside and be willing to let the truth rise up in your awareness? Or do you still think there's a judging God out there somewhere and you still usurp that power? Right? You say, no, I got this. I'll dole out the punishment. Right? And either project guilt onto someone else or yourself. It's just be quiet. Learn to be quiet. For his voice is heard in stillness. And his judgment comes to all who stand aside in quiet listening and wait for him. Right? In the beginning, Jesus was dialoguing with Helen Schuckman, and he's telling her, we need an instrument like this because we are so enveloped in this ego thought system. He says, otherwise, we could just say, God is, and then cease to speak. Right? He says, we could take care of everything if that was the case. But that's what he means by coming into your mind and just being in the silence. Help me to see correctly. And then just wait for the voice for God, so to speak, to rise up. Now, we're not talking about hearing a voice, right? It comes to you in a language you might understand. You might get a thought. You might be moved to say or do something. But it will be coming from that place, that ineffable place in the mind, which is always there. Right? And his judgment, the innocence comes to all who stand aside in quiet listening and wait for him. Paragraph 3. You who are sometimes sad and sometimes angry, who sometimes feel your just due is not given you, and your best efforts meet with lack of appreciation and even contempt, give up these foolish thoughts. They are too small and meaningless to occupy your holy mind an instant longer. God's judgment waits for you to set you free. What can the world hold out to you, regardless of your judgments on its gifts, that you would rather have? You will be judged, and judged in fairness and in honesty. There is no deceit in God. His promises are sure. Only remember that. His promises have guaranteed his judgment, and his alone will be accepted in the end. It is your function to make that end be soon. It is your function to hold it to your heart and offer it to all the world to keep it safe. Right? So he's talking to all of us. You who sometimes angry, sometimes sad. Sometimes feel like you've been slighted. You've been overlooked. Right? Nobody appreciates you. He says, you're looking in the world for some kind of, just some kind of recognition. He says, give it up. Right? He says, the world doesn't hold anything for you. Right? Whatever is in the world is not timeless. Right? So suppose somebody comes up and says, hey, Kev, good job. Well, that's nice. I feel great. And then you wake up tomorrow. And if you don't do a good job again, somebody's probably going to point that out too. Or else you devote years and years and years to a certain project or a certain job or a certain situation, and nobody ever says, hey, Kev, good job. And some people actually go, what the hell are you doing that for? Boy, that's really stupid. You're really giving up a lot to do that. He says, it's meaningless stuff. It's in this chaotic world. He says, give it up. He says, it's too small and meaningless to occupy your mind. Right? You're looking for someone you've deemed important to recognize you. I mean, and it could get extreme. Right? It can get very extreme. What's coming to mind right now is that I was listening to Thich Nhat Hanh, a recording, of course, talking about the Buddhist idea of hungry ghosts. And he said there are many hungry ghosts. They're lacking. They're always looking in the world for that love they thought they're missing, the recognition, the accolade. But it's basically they believe they're missing out on love. Somehow they were deprived of it. And that's how they exist in the world, constantly looking and failing, because that's the ego's thing. Seek but do not find. So Jesus is saying, come on, just give it up. It's meaningless. It's not worth your time. It's too small and meaningless to occupy your holy mind an instant longer. He says, God's judgment waits for you to set you free. Your innocence is waiting for you to realize it, to set you free from all this nonsense. Because once you realize you're innocent, you're no longer guilty, you're no longer part of this nonsense. All right? Although you might still be in a body, which is what he's talking about here at the end. All right? It says, you will be judged. All right? As if God made promises. God didn't make promises, but just the idea that you are an emanation of all that is. That's the promise, that you will always be that way, and that you will remember that someday. Right? He says, only remember that you are the emanation of all that is. And it's guaranteed to come up in your memory. As we keep clearing out the grievances, the hatreds, the projections. This is his judgment, and his alone will be accepted in the end. Only God's judgment will be accepted in the end. You're innocent. And it's your function to make that end be soon. All right? It's our function to realize our innocence by being willing to see it all around us. Help me to see correctly. I'm willing. All right? It's your function to hold it in your heart. Hold that innocence in your heart. Hold that space for your brothers and sisters. All right? See them through that lens of innocence. That's how you offer it to the world, to keep it safe. You offer that innocence to the world to keep it safe, because it will dawn on the world quite soon. All right. So, each one will be judged. Not guilty. Step down. Next case. Holy you are, eternal, free and whole, at peace forever in the heart of God. Just remember that.